What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks. DJ Buck with you on a Friday. Buck, what's up, man?
Nothing, DJ. It is on and popping. Great weekend ahead. A bunch of games to watch. So I'm excited to chat with you about them.
Yeah, we are going to focus on some quarterbacks today. Not going to be a long podcast, but something we were curious about. So we had Nabil, producer Nabil, do some digging, do some homework for us. Wanted to see where these guys come from. Who's producing the quarterbacks right now? Buck, you've been around working with Elite 11 for a decade plus. Get a chance to see a lot of these guys as they're coming up through the high school ranks. But I was curious to see what the numbers look like. We talked a lot about Texas. It seems like, man, we're getting a lot of quarterbacks coming from Texas and have had a lot of success at the NFL level. Georgia is one that you hear mentioned a lot, and we'll go through each of these. But man, I was almost a little surprised. I thought it was one of those things where we think that California's producing these guys, but really, man, it's more. They are 9 starting quarterbacks from our state here in California.
Well, DJ, the common denominator between the teams or the states that are producing these high-level quarterbacks, weather and opportunity. The explosion of two things, 7-on-7 culture and quarterback training opportunities has allowed these young quarterbacks to develop and master skills at an earlier age than we've ever seen before. In California in particular, the weather is conducive to being able to do football stuff year-round. So whether you're in season, going through your stuff, or out of season, what they call 7-on-7 season, from January to May, everyone is always picking up a ball and throwing it all over the yard. It's one of the reasons why we're not only seeing passers, but we're seeing pass catchers come, because they're getting more reps than the previous generation of quarterbacks. And those reps are allowing guys to play early in college and have success. And that eventually leads to these guys being drafted and handed the keys to the kingdom as franchise quarterbacks.
As I'm looking at this, I believe only 4 are from what we would consider cold weather states. So the breakdown of it, California has the most with 9, Texas next with 5, Florida with 4, Georgia with 3. So those are the states with multiple starting quarterbacks. Obviously, think about the climates that you just mentioned in that discussion. California, Texas, Florida, Georgia. You can play year-round there. The other states that have them, so you've got Hawaii, Ohio, Connecticut, Oregon, Alabama, Mississippi, North Carolina, Louisiana, Washington, D.C. Is where one's from, Michigan, and Arizona. They each have 1. So if we're going to consider Ohio, Connecticut, Washington, D.C., Michigan. So of the 32 starters in the NFL, 4 come from a cold weather climate.
It's not happening. So it's just telling you that the opportunity to throw it all over the yard, 365, 24/7, gives you the best chance to play at the next level. And because we're both based in California, Southern California in particular, we see it all the time. DJ, it never stops. Like if the football season ends December 1, they're already on the field December 10th, working with their 7-on-7 teams, getting extra reps with their private throwing coaches and trainers. And that cycle continues until the high schools take them over in February and March and begin to do 7-on-7 stuff with them in the summertime. There's always something going on. So these guys are developing at a faster rate than maybe some of the predecessors.
Yeah, I'm going through and pulling these guys out. So those four quarterbacks would be Joe Burrow, son of a coach, right? Dad was a college coach coming out of Ohio. Will Levis coming out of Connecticut. Then we get to Caleb Williams, Washington, D.C., and then Kirk Cousins coming out of Michigan. Caleb, I would almost put an asterisk next to Buck because he was kind of a circuit quarterback. I mean, he was well known and he was, getting instruction and at camps all over the place. So it wasn't, his offseason wasn't spent, in the cold weather, so to speak.
Yeah, so he got a ton of reps. He played big time football. He played against really, really good teams, and he just kind of has that magic. But he is the exception to the rule more so than the rule, coming from where he came from in the DMV. When you have so many guys come from those states that we talked about, and I'll call them the big 3: California, Texas, Florida. You talked about 4, 5, and 9. So 18 of the starters come from those 3 states. Hey man, if I'm cast my fishing pole, I'm gonna cast my fishing pole in those areas because that's where the quarterbacks are coming from. Also, those states rabid about football. And I know California gets a bad rap in terms of like the passion for football and those things. But what you can't dispute when it comes to California, you can't dispute the quarterbacks and the skill players. They're guys.
Look at the top 25 high school teams every year. I mean, Mater Dei, Bosco, Centennial, they're in there every single year.
They're in there. So there's good football that's being played in California. It might look different than the way it's played in Texas and Florida, but good football players, skill guys. What California isn't able to produce consistently, the bigs. But if you want to see the bigs, you got to go to the Southeast. Quarterback play, skill positions, California is right there. And those numbers bear that out.
I'm going to go through division by division here. And I want you to just you can grab one quarterback, because I guarantee you, because of Bucky's background and history with Elite 11 and being around the high school game, that you have a connection or a story about one of the 4 starters in every single division. I want to go back to the beginning, to the high school stuff. You ready, Buck?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So, and I know you have one here. The Dolphins with Tua coming from Hawaii. The Patriots with Brissett coming from Florida. Josh Allen's California guy with the Bills was a very, very under-recruited player. Aaron Rodgers, also under-recruited player from California. So of those 4, I know you have a connection with Tua.
Yeah, so let's talk about Tua, and let's talk about the importance, because on the previous podcast, we talked about fit and how important it is for guys to have the right guy whispering the sweet nothings in their ear. Tua Tagovailoa, met him at Elite 11. He was a quarterback on my 7-on-7 team at the event, and I've never seen someone who has been revered by players. I think that reaction continues to exist in Miami. I was there the day that the Miami Dolphins paid him at the presser. I've never seen more people overjoyed that the quarterback got paid. For all the things that people talk about, Tua isn't. He doesn't have this arm, he doesn't make this plays, or he's set up because he has so many weapons around him. That's true. But we've also talked about he is a new school quarterback in terms of he's one of the first ones in the RPO era to master that part of the game. And having watched him in action last Sunday against the Jacksonville Jaguars, DJ, I don't know if there's a better RPO quarterback than Tua Tagovailoa that has ever existed. The ball comes out of his hands so quickly. He's able to decipher and read that guy that they're playing pickle on better than anybody. And when it comes to I would call it swings, screens, and shots, there's not a better quarterback to do it. And we can kind of chalk it up to being kind of like a high school rinky-dink offense because so much of it is at the line of scrimmage. DJ, it is out so quickly that these guys catch the ball in stride. And that track team that they've assembled in Miami, they make it go. But Tua Tagovailoa is the one that passes them the baton.
Yeah, he's a perfect fit for what they're doing there. And that's something that he's always done. Anytime he's had speed around him, he's been able to capitalize, take advantage of it. AFC North, you've got Fields from Georgia. Obviously, Russell Wilson's nicked. He's from Virginia. Lamar's from Florida. Burrow, we mentioned, is Ohio. Deshaun Watson out of Georgia. But what was the Field stuff? Because I think people forget, just how highly regarded he was when he was coming out of high school, going to Georgia first, and then transferring to Ohio State.
It's the biggest mystery that I've ever encountered, right? It's the biggest mystery just because Justin Fields was an Elite 11 quarterback. He and Trevor Lawrence have been attached at the hip since they were in high school. Always 1 and 2 in whatever order. People have, I would say, given Trevor Lawrence a little bit of a pass for his performance in the pros. But I'm going to tell you this. When people talk about Justin Fields not being able to read, not being able to do all these things in the passing game, I'm really miffed and blown away because having been around him, having watched him operate on the board, having watched him operate in some of these things, DJ, the processing thing was never necessarily an issue. Now, game action and all this stuff is different when it operates faster. But the dude that I saw not only in high school, the guy that I saw in big games against Trevor Lawrence, we've seen him operate at the high level. To me, it is about, like we talked about with some of the quarterbacks, finding the play caller that truly believes in your talent unconditionally and works with you to cultivate that and nurture that and builds an offense around what you do really well. To me, that's what Justin Fields needs to fully maximize what he is. He's good enough to be a starting quarterback in the league. I know that. But I think he has potential to be a high-level quarterback. I think it's the right fit, the right system, and how you utilize him to tap that out.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how he plays this week. Another opportunity this week. If he plays well, they win. He's going to make it increasingly harder for them to go to Russell when Russell comes back.
DJ, I've seen this happen so many times. As a player, I've
Yeah.
seen like, okay, you miss a day, and then you're supposed to go with the group, and you're about to run up to the field, and the coach takes his arm, like, hold on, we just want to see this rotation. Hey, you good? We just want to see the rotation, see what it looks like. Nothing about you. And before you know it, DJ, that rotation never changes.
Dude, I saw it. I saw it. I saw it in my little rinky-dink career in college. There was 2 quarterbacks, and we were seniors, and we had been competing back and forth and switching who was the starter. And then I got hurt my senior year. He goes in, he plays, he gets hurt. I'm like, okay, well, I'm probably another 2 weeks away. So they throw the 6'4", 220-pound sophomore kid in there. Oh. I watched a couple throws, and I was like, uh-oh. I'll never forget it, Buck. I remember after the game, my parents had come out to the game, and I was about a week away from being healthy, about a week away, and maybe this was his second game. And I just remember my dad came up to me after the game, and he was like, kind of looked at me and we kind of looked around. He goes, "He's pretty good." I go, "Yeah, he is." Oh boy.
I mean, that's what it is. And that's the one thing that we talked about with Russell, because for the Pittsburgh Steelers, they don't really have skins in the game anyway. Like, they're not committing a lot of money to anybody. This is a situation where they really can say best players play. And the more that they win games, and the more that Arthur Smith gets comfortable with Justin Fields being the quarterback, Russell Wilson is very vulnerable to never have an opportunity to really man the team that he thought he was going to man, to help him kind of repair his career.
All right, AFC South, we've got Stroud, another one I know you have a connection with, Anthony Richardson. So Stroud out of California, Richardson out of Florida. Trevor, you just mentioned, Trevor Lawrence out of Georgia, and Will Levis out of Connecticut.
Let's talk about Anthony Richardson. I've told enough stories about CJ. Yeah. I think the Anthony Richardson thing is the one that is the most fascinating, and the one that could have the biggest impact on the quarterback landscape going forward. This is a player prior to last week, DJ, from high school. He's only started 17 games since he left high school. He's a starting quarterback in the NFL. And he's not only a starting quarterback, he dropped a moon ball last week.
Oh my God. Did you see the video? The Colts gave us the video.
That had Joe Flacco saying, ooh, I don't know if I've ever seen that. We've talked about the Colts and how they've all in on the athletic freaks, and how you surround the freaks. You take the freaks, you put them with a coaching staff that are master teachers, and you develop a team that plays at a high level. Anthony Richardson is the guinea pig. If they are able to transform Anthony Richardson into an all-star caliber quarterback, it is going to change how we look at the position. Look, man, he has all the attributes. And even though the tape at Florida didn't necessarily suggest that he is going to be a top 5 pick or a top 5 player, you can't deny the size, the speed, the arm talent, all of those things. If he puts this together, it is going to change the way we scout the position.
Oh, I'm pulling it up right now because I wanted to see. Going back to my report, it's always fun. That's what I love about these conversations. And okay, let's go revisit the report here and see what that said. Anthony Richardson. Okay, he ended up being my 10th player. Richardson packs elite arm strength and athleticism into a big physical frame for the position, but he's incredibly raw on tape. Has urgency and explosiveness in his setup, and the ball jumps out of his hands from a 3/4 slot. Arm strength is special. Doesn't even need to engage his lower body to make power throws deep down the field. On the flip side, decision-making and accuracy are a roller coaster ride. Yanks his arm at times, leading to some ugly misfires, forces too many balls into crowded areas. He's electric as a runner, using burst, agility, and power to rack up runs of 60 to 80 yards. In summary, Richardson needs polish, but his upside exceeds everyone in this draft class. He's a low-floor, high-ceiling prospect.
I mean, that's what it is. And I'm going to say this, DJ, we know it, and we don't know if this guy ever be able to play. Part of Joe Milton being drafted is due to the Anthony Richardson effect.
Yeah.
Let's take someone who has all these physical attributes and see if we can work with him to get him ready. Anthony Richardson is a freak show when it comes to his athletic talent, his natural arm talent. If it works out for him, man, it's going to lead to other athletic freaks to have an opportunity.
The other thing about him, and visiting their training camp last year and talking to their coaches and those around the team, A couple things came up more than these two words came up more than any others. Think about how, like, he walks out in the field and he's a physical specimen, like all the things you could talk about him, like being gifted and physical and athletic. The two words that came up was, you have no idea how humble this kid is.
Good dude.
He's very humble. And number two, he is very smart. So that's like that to me is the magic formula, right? When we talk about guys who didn't have it all put together coming out, the Josh Allens, the Patrick Mahomes, there's some work, there's some development needs to be taking place there. But Herbert was another one. Okay, there's still some work to be done. But at the end of the day, all the physical tools in the world, and then you add to that the humility to know that they don't know everything, but also the intelligence that they are going to get there. And those are the guys you bet on. And that's one of those things when I had those conversations, I'm like, this he's going to figure it out.
Yeah, he's on his way to figuring it out. And you're right. Intelligence in all positions is critical. We're beginning to talk about that more and more. You can't go wrong with good guys who are smart.
Yeah, no question. All right, last one in the AFC. We'll take a break right after this. Herbert coming out of Oregon, Mahomes out of Texas, Bo Nix out of Alabama, and Gardner Minshew out of Mississippi.
This is tough, but let's go to Pat Mahomes, and because this story is for us. Pat Mahomes, I remember, because now everyone knew that Pat Mahomes was going to be great, but I remember just the conversations that existed around Pat Mahomes when he was coming out of Texas Tech. I remember leaning into some scouts that had gone and done the school call and did the work. And DJ, I still have notes in my phone from those conversations where guys told me, like, hey man, this dude is talented. He has a lot of stuff, but we've never seen a Sandlot quarterback work in the National Football League. And I remember, based on those conversations, when we did the write-up, like talking about, like, hey, we've never seen this style work. Didn't change until he came into our studio that day. He came on Move the Sticks. We talked about his recall, his humility, and his competitive drive in those conversations as we were talking about it, made you go,
yeah,
man, if I had only talked to you before I issued my final grade.
Yeah.
The stars have this obsession with being great, and they're not willing to accept where they are. They're only satisfied when they get to where they want to go. And Pat Mahomes, in that conversation that we had with him, he was very clear about where he wanted to go in terms of the type of player he wanted to be. And the intelligence, the drive, all of that stuff he displayed in that conversation, I believe is a big part of why he is the player that he is and why this team in Kansas City has become the team that they've become.
Yep. I think everybody looks at the talent, and I think you have to add into that the work ethic, the intelligence, the drive, the competitiveness. That's what makes him the best. It might go down as the best player this game has ever seen. Pretty astounding from where he began and the development that's taken place. But the wiring, again, we got to see that when he came into the studio, as you mentioned, was just, it was elite, man. It was elite, and that's why we're seeing this guy go on an absolute tear in the NFL. Let's take a quick break. We come back, we'll run through the NFC real quick. All right, Buck, we'll pick up the pace here on the back half. NFC, we've got Hurts from Texas, Prescott from Louisiana, Jaden Daniels from California, Daniel Jones from North Carolina.
I'm going to take Hurts, but I think this also applies for Dak Prescott. DJ, scouting is so much more than what you see on tape. Scouting is tapping into the man and understanding who that person is. Same story applies for Dak Prescott as it does for Jalen Hurts, but we'll use Jalen Hurts as the example. The thing that everyone talked about in Philadelphia, just how competitive he was and the professional that he was from the time that he walked in. A lot of what we're trying to assess when we're evaluating young quarterbacks, do they have the intangibles, the qualities to handle being the franchise quarterback? When you talk to the people at Alabama, then at Oklahoma, they just talked about how he was a culture changer when he went from Alabama to Oklahoma in terms of expectations and those things. You talk to people in Philadelphia, how he connected with the young guys in Philly, how he carried himself, even though no one expected him to ever be the starting quarterback in Philadelphia, but how he earned that right. To me, it's the same conversation that I had with people in Dallas about Dak Prescott. DJ, we have to always assess the physical tools. But, man, there's something about the intangibles, the toughness, the smarts, the tenacity that franchise quarterback possesses that separates the good from the great.
Yeah, I would add one other nugget from these quarterbacks, which is with Jaden Daniels, a good scouting lesson, is don't be stubborn. don't hold yourself to your first opinion on someone. Players get better. The light comes on at a different time. In terms of the leadership, the work ethic, all those things that he displayed, at the end of his career at LSU that maybe weren't lauded or appreciated, or maybe he didn't even possess at Arizona State. I think there's a lot of our buddies who did the West, who are out there, who knew Jaden Daniels from Arizona State, that couldn't get over that. I think there was guys in the Southeast with Bo Nix who couldn't get over it with him. So let's not be stubborn evaluators. Let's let new information come in, and your opinions can grow and your opinions can change. I think that's a very valuable lesson there from a guy like Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, look, a super valuable lesson, and one that we all should kind of heed when we're looking at the position and looking at how guys grow and improve. Guys can get better. And I know I had a hard time with Jaden Daniels, just remembering what he was at Arizona State, some of the conversations that existed around that, and then watching him grow into the player that he became at LSU. You're right. We have to have a level of grace as evaluators, and we have to kind of meet people where they are, but continue to monitor them and give them credit when they make these changes. So hats off to Jaden Daniels for the success that he's had.
NFC North, Sam Darnold's California kid from San Clemente. Jared Goff, another California kid. Caleb Williams, Washington, D.C. Jordan Love, California.
I'm going to go with Jared Goff. And Jared Goff, and we'll say this because a lot of the stuff that we did when Jared Goff and Carson Wentz were coming out, that were made for TV discussions and conversations. But we didn't really have an opportunity to do the deep dive on Jared Goff where it was not debate TV. But in thinking about Jared Goff, I think the lesson to be learned from that is also don't judge a book by its cover. The Hard Knocks that he participated in his rookie season really impacted the way people thought about him as a player. Like, he was viewed as not being a smart player, and that kind of grew as the legend of Sean McVay grew in the Rams. It was this perception that he was kind of the joystick that Sean McVay was playing the game through. He didn't have the ability to do other stuff. He goes to Detroit, a downtrodden team, a city that really respects a tough, gritty player. He has become that and displayed different sides of his personality in doing it. I think part of what we all have to do is, we talked about it in the NFC East thing, the intangibles, DJ, digging into somebody's background and seeing if they have the necessary intangibles to handle all the pressure that comes with being a franchise quarterback. Jared Goff has that, and he's been able to display that stepping outside of LA and being the man in Motown.
I find it funny that NFC North, you think about the ruggedness, AFC North and NFC North, I think they're the two best divisions, the most competitive divisions. But we think about just the weather. You think about Lambeau Field late in the year. You think about in Chicago, just the kind of the toughness that, and then I looked down and I kind of laughed at 3 of these 4 quarterbacks are from California, and the 4th one played at USC. So I find that kind of amusing when you look at that division, the makeup of it.
It is funny that those guys are standouts in the Midwest, and they all are California kids. I do remember we always talked about it in golf terms. Like, you got to be able to have a long driver. You got to hit it long off the tee to be able to play in inclement conditions, because the ball doesn't fly as far in cold weather. All of these guys have been able to successfully navigate that. Now, there's conversations about Jared Goff because he's an indoor player playing in Detroit. You wondered if it would translate, but it doesn't appear to impact the Detroit Lions because they're lighting the scoreboard up on everybody. And with all of those guys, I think sometimes it's overblown where they grow up in terms of where the destination is, where they play. I think the main thing is the experience, the exposure, but digging down deeper and seeing the intangibles.
Next division, and I have a specific question on this one. So Saints, Derek Carr from California, Baker Mayfield from Texas, Kirk Cousins, one of the cold weather guys from Michigan, Bryce Young from California. But I want to ask you about Derek Carr from this standpoint. And I remember going through the evaluation process, and we've talked about that a bunch. But I don't know if we've ever had it from this angle. And we'll see it with Arch Manning coming up in a few years. We saw it last year with a lot of other players in the draft who had dads who played in the NFL. But having the familiarity, having grown up, I think of Ken Griffey Jr., right? He guy grew up on a baseball field, was in an MLB clubhouse with his dad. How much of an advantage do you think it was? Did you play with anybody that's dad, had a dad in the NFL, or do you have any other, connection to that of just the advantage of having been in that environment from a young age?
I don't have a direct story, a success story, but I will say, like, just being in the locker room with guys who kind of grew up in it, it becomes the family business, DJ. Mm-hmm. There's not only an expectation provided the person is wired the right way. Because I think it's really important how they're wired. They need to be humbled enough that they don't show the entitlement that, oh, my dad played or my uncles or my granddad played. I know how to get it. But there is something to being able to have someone in the family who's done it, to be able to convey those messages about how hard it is to do the work that it requires, the things that you need to do to put yourself in a position to be ready. I think those stories are valuable. And when we think about the Mannings and look, think about Archie Manning and Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, and then you think about what they could pass down to Arch Manning, being able to do it. Yeah, there's a huge advantage and comes to that. It doesn't guarantee the same success that the legacy parent or the legacy family member may have had. But man, it certainly can take away some of the shine of the league and allow you to focus in. And to me, I'll use Pat Mahomes as that example. Different sport,
Yeah.
but dad played in the majors. You're always around it. DJ, there's an acceptance or there's a sense of belonging when you see it all the time. Like, no, I can handle this. Like, I got this. We're good to go. Like, there's no pressure. Being able to have those real conversations with someone who's kind of walked in those shoes before, to me, is very valuable.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, and we're a couple years away from Arch Manning coming into the league, but I'm sure we'll have those conversations. I just think the last year, Joe Alt, with Marvin Harrison Jr. We'll have it next year with Shedeur Sanders. So it will be a conversation. But I mean, like, there's a lot of guys, a lot of kids making us kind of feel old. Is what it's doing.
Yeah, I know. Like playing Frank Gore Jr. I mean,
yes,
like being able to have kids, like just all of it. Like it's crazy to watch. But yeah. Legacy bloodlines, because I think about the Matthews, Clay Matthews, and all the Matthews that have played. They just kind of understand it. They get it at a different level.
Last division here, NFC West. Brock Purdy out of Arizona, Geno Smith out of Florida, Kyler Murray out of Texas, Matthew Stafford out of Texas.
Ooh. Man, that's tough.
Kyler Murray, and let me get you this way. I've had numerous people tell me that they will go to their grave saying Kyler Murray is the most dominant high school football player they've ever seen.
I will continue to ride with that. It was one of the reasons I was so into the Kyler Murray experience. I was willing to bet on him. I mean, DJ, people absolutely swear by him and what he was able to do in Texas. And yeah, he might have had an all-star with him, but this dude was a terrific high school player. And it's funny because he's kind of under the radar right now in Arizona. All of the stuff that is kind of taking place, like they've kind of fallen from being one of those teams that was in contention to now they're rebuilding. I just know he was a really good player. I know he's an offensive rookie of the year. He has played at a high level at times. And the thing that has stuck with him, though, has been the narrative about like his work ethic and those things. And I'll tell people this, and it might be hard for people to understand. When you're as revered and you as celebrated as Kyler Murray has been, and maybe you've been able to do it a certain way your whole career, it is hard to get someone to change and say it's not good enough when I don't think you lost a high school game.
You want to know the numbers, Buck?
I mean, it's hard.
He won 3 straight high school championships. He was 42-0 as a starting quarterback. Is that good? I think that's good.
I mean, 42-0 in high school, the way that you operate. Heisman Trophy winner at Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. Step into the league right away. Offensive rookie year, and you've been a Pro Bowler. And yet you have people saying, hey, man, I don't know if you work hard enough.
Seems to be working pretty good.
I got a lot of hardware. I got a lot of hardware that says my way works. Yeah. Those things tend to be funny, but I mean, we're being real. Sometimes it's hard with players to kind of understand that part of it. And he's a really good player. He's taking us behind the scenes. Look, it appears that like Jonathan Gannon and that crew is all in on him. We just kind of continue to see how he progresses because the flashes that he displays, man, they're impressive. They're spectacular.
Related to that, it's a different sport, obviously, different requirements. But I did see, I thought of Kyler Murray because I was laughing because I think it was, might have been on our buddy Chris Rose's show. It was a baseball podcast, but they had Logan Webb on, the pitcher for the Giants. And they said, hey, what did you guys do to celebrate when Blake Snell threw his no-hitter? I think it was against the Reds on the road. What'd you guys do? He's well, the rest of the team, we went out and had a good time. Blake Snell was playing video games, so we didn't really see him. There you go. I mean, some guys love their video games. It is what it is. New generation, man.
That is that generation. They grow up on it. Like we grew up on it to a lesser degree, but this generation has been immersed in that online gaming and all that other stuff when it comes to like being able to play esports and all of that. Like it's just a different time. But I can't knock them because they're able to do it. One other thing about Kyler Murray, when you are a top 10 pick in another sport,
yeah, no kidding,
and a top 10
How about
and
that?
number one overall, you might want to give him a little credit. Like, I know we can say a lot, but he's really talented.
Yeah. That is nuts when you think about it. Because he's not some 6'4", 230-pound guy. This isn't like Drew Henson, coming out, who is a physical specimen. Like this guy's this big. He's literally the number 1 pick in the NFL and a top 10 pick in baseball. Like, come on.
To be that good in 2 sports,
yeah,
you have to be immensely talented.
Yeah, that's crazy. All right, that's going to do it for us today. Hope you guys enjoyed a little quarterback deep dive. We'll be back next week to break down all of the week 2 action. We'll see you next time right here on Move the Sticks.